All right, it is podcast time again. Appreciate everyone joining, and for those that listen to this back on DVR, hopefully you enjoy it. It's Jeff Catherman again with our Waconia Wrestling podcast, and we have a special guest tonight. We will be adding some more coaches, and we've been interviewing a lot of wrestlers these last couple of times, talking about the off-season stuff. We're now in preseason mode, and so we're here to have one of our favorite guests and good friend of mine, Jake Avre, with us tonight. Jake, how are you?
I'm doing well. I'm doing good. I'm excited to be here again.
And Jake has bugged me a couple of times. He wants to be back, so I think this hopefully will be a recurring theme this year, Jake. Hopefully, it's not another year that has passed. We have you on again, and I think we've got some plans to maybe do some more play-by-play color commentary on our live stream events this year. So more to come on that. But tonight we wanted to really cover off on a couple of different topics. Mostly, we're going to try to keep it short in the next 45 minutes to an hour on our Olympics recap. The in wrestling, sport of wrestling, there's not an NFL or an NBA, but there is the Olympics, and that's basically the pro version of the pro level of this sport. And so beyond like MMA and those types of things. But so we're going to talk a little bit about the recap of the Olympics. We're going to talk a little bit of a promo of all our youth club programs are open now on the website for registration. You can see the little ticker down at the bottom on how to get that if that's another reminder for you. And then we've got an upcoming clinic talk a little bit about, and then we're gonna dive into just talking wrestling, our love of the sport, and just some topics relative to that both Jake and I are very deeply passionate.
Rabbit hole we end up down.
Right, correct. We could go really long on some of these topics, so we're gonna ration ourselves to just an hour in these things. But yeah, so we'll start off with the Olympics. Jake, we had our Paris Olympics about 3 weeks ago. I think it ended, and we ended up with across. We got men's freestyle, women's freestyle, men's Greco are the three styles at the Olympics, and we came away with 7 medals. And we could talk a little bit about each. The women really out medaled the men this time, and that is. It does not surprise me. We have some phenoms on the women's side, but also some very accomplished wrestlers as well. So a little bit of both. I think we'll dive first into the men's freestyle, and then we'll talk about women's next. But we had 3 medalists. We had Spencer Lee, one of my favorite Hawkeyes of all time, multiple-time NCAA champion. He was actually a multiple-time age group cadet, which is basically 17 and under, and junior champion 20 and under. And so this was his first big senior tournament, and he ended up second place. What was your thoughts, Jake, on how Spencer Lee wrestled and his tournament?
Yeah, he's
silver medal.
Probably the guy that I watched the most of, just because I was able to find the most stuff on him. I consider myself still a very avid fan, but I don't get into it like I used to, as far as like block the day off and turn my phone off and just, stream for the duration of the session. But no, I went back and I watched a lot of Spencer. I do like him a lot, despite his, as you had mentioned, pedigree of being a Hawkeye. I am a fan of his. I do remember early on he had a tough match against, I believe it was China. It's somebody that he's had tough matches with in the past. And I think those guys that just hold position and don't give a lot, and they don't really get flustered or get panicky. They just kind of sit there in their little box, I call it, when you're in your stance and you're not doing a lot. And Spencer was able to stay composed in that match and get through it. Looked great. What was it? The next round, like you got it brought up here on the thing.
You're right.
The next guy.
He had Zoe from China. Then he had the Beksat Almaz Ulu from Kyrgyzstan.
Okay.
Pretty much took care of him fast, I think, in a leg lace.
Yeah, and then Armenia, he was upset, right? Is that correct? Or no, then he beat the anyway.
The Hartunian from Armenia, right, was he beat RBY, Roman Bravo Young, which I think was kind of a stunner, but he's a multiple time medalist, but he
yes, very good.
He got outdone by Abdullayev from Uzbekistan. So
yeah, in my opinion, going back, I mean, the best 3-4 guys in the world, we didn't see a couple of them. So we're missing the Russian Ugaev, I believe. Right. He's getting up there in age, but he's a multiple-time world champ, and the Russian representative would, of course, been a factor. And I'll probably mention that a few times. It was disappointing for obvious reasons that they weren't there. Just from the wrestling side, I would have loved to have seen that. And also, isn't Micic a 57 as well?
Yeah, right. Micic was last year's world champion. His parents are from Serbia. And so,
he represented Serbia in Serbia and had that great run at Worlds. So you're missing two of the better guys right there. But in my opinion, knowing a little bit, I think Higuchi and Spencer Lee were the two guys that you were going to see wrestle in the finals. Yeah. I am always going to be an American fan, even if they are Hawkeyes. But if there is one guy that's going to get me to cheer for him, maybe even against an American, it's Higuchi. I'm just a massive fan of the way that guy holds, the way that guy forces other people to do what he wants them to do. There's an old clip on the internet of John Smith talking 7 or 8 years ago about the best single leg in the world. And if he was talking about Higuchi, and he does so few things, but he does them all extremely well. Like most guys in the world, they have 2 or 3 things that they're really good at, and they get everybody else to fall for it or get them in their positions. But it seems like Higuchi has got a couple of more positions that he can execute in that he just gets everybody else to fall for, and it's a masterclass. He's out there playing chess, man, and it's too bad Spencer couldn't beat him. But again, as a Higuchi fan, it was kind of fun to watch him get another world title.
Right.
I think Spencer's a big question mark. I don't know if your next thought is going to be about whether or not he comes back. Obviously, as wrestling fans, we want him to make another run at it, and he's as competitive as anybody from what I've seen and heard about the kid. But yeah, there's the cupboards aren't bare down low for the Americans. Obviously, our next leg up kids are young, like really they're actual kids. But down the road, maybe not this cycle, but the next cycle, we're going to have young kids in there that are really, competing at that level, which is encouraging. If Spencer holds on for another cycle, I don't see anybody challenging him. There's Vito's probably too big, and you have the Dayton Fixes and the RBYs representing
Gilman,
the country.
Gilman Fix. I think they're maybe Gil. I don't know.
I don't see anybody.
I think it's going to be if Spencer
challenging him.
I mean, Spencer's on what he's had 4 new knees, I believe, 1 in each, or sorry, 2 in each.
So I don't know how old he is. I'm guessing probably mid to late 20s.
I think he's 25-ish. Yep.
Yeah.
Plus or minus.
He's probably got the knees of a 70-year-old man. You know what I mean? So it's like, well, if he finds a coaching role and moves on in life, obviously nobody's going to fault him for that. He's I'm sure feeling it. But yeah, I was extremely impressed with watching Spencer, I guess, without getting to the point of Spencer. Everybody that follows the sport closely and knows the technique behind what he's doing knows he's going to get his hand inside and he's going to get that little fireman's barrel roll that he's been doing for 15 years to everybody in the world. And the guys didn't give him that position, but he just pick up the basic single leg on the other side against a lot of his tougher opponents. And it looked really good. He didn't have the spring he did when he was younger, but it was still really a great performance. And I'm sure he's disappointed, but I mean, dude, you were 1 scramble away from being an Olympian. So.
Right. Yeah, I totally agree. And, I would love him to repeat, but I think just father time, there's a lot of tread on those tires. And I think he just was putting a lot into the basket here. So, but I think Higuchi, this might be his last hurrah as well. He was Olympic runner-up in 16.
I believe you're correct.
And then he did not make the 2021. He got beat out by another Japanese wrestler, and then he came back. And now this probably is his.
Yeah, I think he was a
moment.
one-time world champion coming into this, but he was a multiple-time medalist.
Yeah, and he was.
I think he was all of his accolades.
I'm pretty sure he was world champ at 61 kilos, and so he obviously 61 is not a Olympic weight class. There's 10 non-Olympic weights. There's only 6 Olympic weights.
And he medaled last year. He beat Gross for a bronze. I remember that. Maybe that was 2 years ago. Yeah, 2 years ago now. Anyways, we should probably move along. But it's considered a fun tournament. It's fun to watch him. It's just too bad he didn't, win. Like I said, win that scramble, push the pace a little more. 74 is probably the next weight that I watched the most of. Obviously, Dake. It was fun to see him come back in his bronze medal match. That guy that he had beaten, I don't know when his name's written out. It's different.
He beat Sabalov from. I believe he's wrestling for Serbia, but he's a Russian. The common theme here.
He's been around for 10 years, longer even. I remember him from way back when. But it was a match they could have easily lost. You watched the match and it was not going his way. And it was just kind of looking like he could have very easily let that slip out of his grasp. But he had a little bit of grit at the end and got in a position where he really kind of let it fly, I guess, which is exciting. And he came back and he was bouncing around and all that positive energy. It was great to see him close that out that way. I know it's just disappointing he didn't win. Again, I would have loved to have seen the 2 Russians that were void of this tournament at this weight where everybody knows, if you're a fan, Sidakov, who's lost once maybe in the world competition in the last however many years, and that was the guy that actually won it. Beat him in competition, not in the worlds, but in the competition. And then the Kadi Madamegov, I think is his name. He wrestles for, bounces around over there. He's also phenomenal. He's the guy who teched Dake in the semis of the last Olympics, I believe it was.
Right, and both Magomedov was in Belarus, and Belarus is on that sanctioned list that they're not allowed to compete, along with Russia, and so Sidakov and Magomedov were not allowed. I think Sidakov might be done wrestling. Who knows?
Yeah, the rumors are he's going to go to MMA.
Right. He's in USA right now. I've seen clips of him at like the New York RTC or something like that, doing like showing technique and stuff. So
well, those guys do that all the time. I don't know if it's just the Russians, right? But if you can get a club to pay you whatever you command, and you come over, you do a camp, they get to see Times Square, they they have a great time. I've known a few people that have been in that world, and they say the guys from other parts of the world, they love to come in and get hosted for a while. They have a great time, and they can kind of cut loose and have fun and get some travel in, and then they also train a little bit too and get paid, which they don't always do in other parts of the world.
Yeah. Agreed. Yeah. So, I mean, I think there's a whole other podcast as well to talk about the champ Zamalov, but over Takatani, who beat Dake, but because he had a little bit of a controversial quarterfinal.
But you were telling me about that. I guess I wasn't aware of all this.
Yeah. So short story, he won. You can see he beat Valiev 6-5, but that's only because the referee the jury or the review council reviewed it upon challenge at the end of the match and said that Valiev had fled the mat, and even though he was just circling and sprawling, which is what else is he supposed to do, and so that was very controversial in the quarters here, and then he steamrolled his way past Rastadin, another Russian, and Takatani pinned him in a cradle of all things. Kind of went David Taylor on him, and so
I don't know, Zamalov is the one that won, right? Is that what you have?
Yep.
The cradle? He's got some. He's sneaky, man. Like I said, he does have a win over Sidikov in competition. I've seen that match on YouTube or something, but he looks like he doesn't do a lot. But if he gets inside on guys and gets underhooks and doubles, he's got some dangerous. Again, the match she ends up with a cradle, right? It's like, well, it seems like a weird scramble, but he puts himself in some positions to be really dangerous, and he tends to do that in matches. He'll be in a close match, and there'll be a point or two, and it's a push-out deciding it, and then all of a sudden he's got a guy in this weird cradle, and it comes a lot from his ability to wrestle out of things. So he'll shoot in, put himself underneath somebody, and then slip free of it, and not just clear the position, but also put himself in an advantage to create some kind of big moves. And he's good. And I think he might be a little bit younger, too. He's not super aged, so he's going to be around a little bit. 74, who knows what the future holds for that weight class in our country. Dake is, again, he's an old man. There's a lot, as you said, miles on those tires, and I'm sure he'll move on in life. If he comes back, great. Cool, but
I think it's going to be this next gen of guys that have been getting medals at the U17, U20, U23 group, where you've got the Keegan O'Toole's, David Carr, Mr. Messenbrink, Levi Haynes. Yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of interesting.
And those guys are all amazing, and they're world class. Obviously, it's going to be interesting to see if they put the time in to do some of these, do the circuit. I guess. You see Dake and you see him winning now, but people forget 10 years ago, him and Taylor, well, maybe, I don't know, I just made that number up, but they were always playing second and third fiddle to Burroughs. And they didn't just, sit back and just wait. They were out training and they were out competing and they were in the circuit. And I don't know if they were going year round to the Medved and Wrestling World Cups and stuff, but a lot of these guys that are coming up through are going to have to kind of get on board with that. And it's going to be interesting to see from a fan perspective who's putting the time in and doing that. Some guys, sure, they just kind of come right to the top and they keep steamrolling, but most of our guys come through a gauntlet of years of not everybody knowing who they are and kind of having to work through that backup role or whatever you call it, and then show up when it's time and have that experience of wrestling overseas and feeling what these guys can do, and not just showing up at the Olympics or the world and being like, I'm here now, it's my turn.
Right. Yeah, it's going to be interesting, but Dake's had a great career, and if this is it for him, he's going to go down as one of the best ever to lace him up, and kudos to him. So 86
high school kid makes you feel old.
Yeah, I know. I do remember watching NCAAs when he was, beating Montel Marion for that first one, and then he kept going up each weight class. He was the only one that still ever won 4 NCAA titles across 4 weight classes, and that we may not see that again. So I want to talk about our last men's freestyle medal, and we'll get to the women. But we got Aaron Brooks. Talk about 4-timer. Brooks, went. I believe he was a 4-time NCAA champion at Penn State. I can't remember if he has got another year left or if there's others, but he had this was his first Worlds, because David Taylor has manned this weight class for many, many years and was the last, was the 2021 Olympic champion at this weight. And Brooks had a great tournament. He did, though, stumble in the semis against the eventual champion, Magomed Ramazanov from Bulgaria, but another Russian that's transferred. Kind of like, Russians are kind of studying the AAA transfer playbook, I guess. But
so it's funny. I mean, kind of a side note to that. Flo did a little article the other day of like a heat map of where the medals are coming from.
Yep.
And if you were to click on it, you get a better rundown of than me explaining it. But it shows how little pockets around the world have isolated success. They've monopolized success at that level. And I don't know exactly who, and I can't even pronounce half the names, but majority of these world and Olympic champions and medalists come from a very small part of the world that people are familiar with, mostly because of the UFC fighter Khabib and his dominance. But a lot of them are from Dagestan
Right.
and the surrounding areas, or they've spent many years there training. They come from other parts of Russia or Asia, and then they move there, they train, they live there, and it's pretty remarkable to see the success. And I believe this Ramazanov is one of those guys also. It's disappointing that Brooks won, but it kind of goes back to that point about, even our guys over here that are that good. Aaron Brooks is as dominant as we've had as an American college wrestler. They still have to get this international experience because the rest of the world is really, really good too. And just because you were here and you majored and teched everybody in college, and these other wrestlers are fantastic, and we think, well, you're a national champion this many times and you're our best guy, you should go win the Olympics. It doesn't work out that way. These other parts of the world are producing some really fantastic athletes who they have international experience. I know Aaron Brooks, I believe, has won age group world titles, and I know Team USA has these guys prepared. I'm not trying to do that. I'm just saying it takes a lot of extra tournaments to get a feel for how to win these things.
Agreed.
And you look at David Taylor. He wasn't the guy for a long time because of Jordan Burroughs, and when he became the guy, he was ready. He showed it, of course, but he had a loss to Yazdani. He took a few lumps to Burroughs. It's like you have to spend time in the fire to get to that level. Not everybody is going to be Gable Steveson and just come out and blow the doors off everybody and win it as a 21-year-old. You usually have to put your time in.
Exactly. And he had the closest match against Ramazanov, had the lead 3-2 with, just clock was ticking down. He ends up going in for a shot, and then basically it wasn't really a committed shot. He just went in there to kind of stall time and try to stall it out. And in my opinion, he stopped wrestling, and Ramazanov eventually, who looked just freakishly strong, by the way, got a crotch lock and then just exposed him in the final 2-3 seconds, and that was it. And you even heard Jordan Burroughs on the call saying, "Here's Aaron Brooks doing a good job," and it's like, "Oh no!" So that was
he saw it coming. He saw it coming. He kind of quit it, I guess.
Yeah. And so just keep wrestling.
Yeah, and again, those are the little moments that you have to go through, I guess, at that level. I see it as a fan, and then it's easy to put your finger and be like, "Oh, he just made this one mistake," but it's like, as a competitor, it takes a lot to get over those humps and to get that, mat presence. And a lot of times, it's a couple of years, or in his case, it's going to take another cycle, and hopefully he comes back.
I think he'll be back. He's still in his early kind of I think he's around 23, 24. So he's probably got another 4 years in him, but I think that's going to be a pretty competitive weight class. And, I think hopefully maybe 4 years from now, we look back at this podcast. I hope we're going to see our Waconia alum, Max McAnally, maybe in those trials at that point in time. That would be cool.
Yeah,
let's all go out to LA if that happens.
Oh, that's right. The Olympics are in LA.
Oh, that's true. Well, the trials won't be, but the Olympics will be.
I guess he'll be of that age, right? He did have the cadet silver. Everybody was so excited about in our community. He's a great kid. He works hard. He's got a heck of coaching staff in Minnesota that did it with Cable. It would be neat to see, but he's got a pretty big hill to climb for just preparing for the NCAAs and get some success here.
One thing at a time.
Who knows though? Who knows? Yeah, man. I guess I hadn't thought about that. It's fun to think
there's going to be quite a bit of competition at that weight. he had NCAAs, and then going forward with the brothers out of West Bend, their name escapes me. Askren guys.
Well, the Wisconsin kids,
Mirasola
I don't know. I'm
brothers.
terrible. Yeah, those
Mirasola
two.
brothers, Aiden
There's that. Then
Sinclair.
there's that one kid with the front head pinch that he wrestled that has stayed really relevant. I forget his name. Or something, or I don't know. Like I said, the names all escape me. But yeah, I mean, domestically, there's some really bad dudes here too that he's got to figure out. I think it just comes down to kind of the same formula I was just talking about. First you got to figure out how to win here. You got to figure out how to separate yourself and get on the radar. And then the USA coaches kind of step in and they say, okay, well, here's the game plan, and they prep the guys and they say, well, we're going to train here and do a camp, but then we're also going to ship you off to the other side of the world and put you through some of these things. And hopefully you're fortunate enough to travel with the great Joe Russell and share some laughs with that guy. The Minnesota shout out back in the day. But just I'm sure it's a lot just getting out and wrestling these international tournaments and being a part of the scene, learning, never stop.
Absolutely. So we're going to transition now to the women. For the men, the rest did not make the podium at 65.
Which is sad that Snyder didn't find the podium.
Snyder got fifth. He lost in the bronze match. He lost to the eventual champion. I'll go back to Tuz.
Such a bulldog for so many years. You hate him to have to go out without a medal at this Olympics. But yeah, I mean that's the sport, right? Nothing's handed to you just because you were good a couple of days ago, let alone a few years. I mean, it's painful, but that's his journey, right? Nobody gets to win forever.
That's right. Yep. So Snyder got fifth. Zane, he ended up making the repechage, but he had a concussion. So Zane, I think, ended up technically like 8th or 9th or something like that. And then Paris lost his first one, and then his guy lost. So he went 0-1. Unfortunately, he did not look his best. And that was pretty much it.
So, let's part on this thought. So, Tagul gets a bronze. Peshawili wins, and then Zaire from Iran is obviously still one of the top dogs. But that Peshawili and Agul have been battling back and forth for 4 Olympic cycles now. I mean, it's amazing how old these guys are, and they're still doing this, and they're still finishing on the podium.
That's right. Yeah.
I mean, we could talk about the women's, but remind me, I wanted to mention Agul because it kind of comes back full circle what I was saying about talking about the trickle down.
Yeah, we'll do. We'll come back to Agul. And women, we had 2 gold medalists. We had Sarah Hildebrandt at 50 kilos and Amit Elor at 68. Hildebrandt at 50, she had been close a couple of times, and silver, a bronze, and now finally got it done. And so she's a super nice person, and great, just very positive. Works out with her brother, Drew, who was an NCAA All-American, moved out to Colorado Springs to be her training partner. So great story, great family, and super happy for Sarah to not get it done. I actually saw her training at the Olympic Training Center 2 weeks ago. I was down there for a Min USA State Leaders Summit, and she was recognized during one of those freestyle practices by Jaden Cox, and just very humble person, and great to see her get it done. Amit Elor, she was multiple times. She's just 20 years old, was too young. Jake was 1 day too young to try to make the Olympic trials last cycle. And so here she is, but she had won everything there was to win across U17s, U20s, U23s, and had then also won, I think, senior last year at a different weight class. I think at might have been 72 kilos. And so she came down to 68 for this Olympic cycle and basically dominated. I think she just allowed 2 points all tournament, and basically wrestles an upper body style and must have just insane grip strength because no one could do anything on her. And holds a really good stance, but good sprawl, good go behind. I mean, it's not rocket science. She just knows who she is, and I think has a judo background, and so she dominated. And so she'll be a thing for a long time, in my opinion. So,
well, yeah, 20 years old. She's got 2 cycles left.
Yep. Oh yeah. And she's a lot like a lot of these girls have been wrestling boys for a long time. I saw something on social media. She won like folk style nationals, 12U division, like back in 2016 as boys division.
Well, and that's kind of what I see happening with women's wrestling. Is the neat thing about it is, in my opinion, what's really neat about it is, because I remember growing up when you had a girl in your bracket, it was like everybody was scared, because you didn't want to lose, and they all were tough because they all were sisters of wrestlers, or they generally had a connection to the sport. It wasn't very many girls that just walked into practice and just wanted to try it back when I was young, 90 years ago. And it was kind of this thing where everybody was accepting for the most part, and I'm sure there's some stories out there where that maybe is not the case, but you felt like, okay, they're here, and you give them their due. But now it's this thing where wrestling has really embraced the idea of, no, let's get them in here and let's get them better. And they're like, well, at what age do they do? No, that crap matters. Get them in here and get them better. Yeah, but then we got to have different leagues, and it's like, yeah, none of that crap matters. We'll figure it out. And that just kind of speaks to the spirit of our sport, where I know other sports have, shoot, tennis has a whatever, right? Where it's men and women doubles and there's medal sport. I get it. Like other sports have a inclusive idea too. Golf has tournaments where both men and women play. I'm not saying other sports don't do it, but wrestling we have every excuse and reason not to be that way, just because of the ages that we mature differently, right? Like I remember, like you said, like the girls come out, like you said, this young girl was crushing boys at the U12 tournament or whatever. They mature fast and they get really good quick because they listen and they're not out picking their nose and chasing their partners around and goofing. They listen and they get good quick. And then bodies change and the boys gone. But it's like we didn't worry about any of that. We're just like, no, we're all wrestlers. Let's figure it out. Let's create a league. Okay, let's do it. Done. All right. Well, now we have to do this. Okay, great. We'll get on board and we'll do it. Or we can train together. Okay, cool. We'll figure it out. Yeah. And that's what really makes me excited about it, is what the place that wrestling is in, because let's face it, all sports right now are competing against each other for kids. My kids are now entering all these different sports, and everybody wants their money and their attention. Everybody wants to grab the kids and pull them in and say, this is our thing, come do our thing. And there's all these other distractions on top of that. Plus, too, we have the core things that are important in life, faith, hunting, just being a family, whatever, all these things going on in life. And when you have these kids and they're like, no, I'm not going to wrestle this year, I'm just going to play lacrosse. All right, cool, fine, whatever. We'll do your lacrosse. And so we lose kids and we lose opportunities to keep the kids. But at the same time, wrestling has really taken that things where, well, the girls shouldn't wrestle. No, we don't care. Let's just wrestle. Well, but then we don't care. We'll just figure it out. And that's what's really cool to see and that's what's keeping us, I think, on the good side of the growth curve, even though things are kind of, well, we're up, we're down for numbers, but I think we're still going on the right side, so up and to the right, with our numbers and enrollment and engagement and opportunities. Because you and I talk a lot about on-ramps in our community, getting kids to come back out for wrestling who had quit, now they're 4th graders, so get them back in. Getting kids who were in 7th grade, never wrestled before. How do we get them involved? The sisters, let's get them involved, and just getting more and more kids into wrestling is ultimately our job. That's our job. Everybody wants to win. Everybody wants to coach the best kids, and it's fun and it's great. But the job is to get more kids on the mat and on the on ramps and the ways to do it. And I think the success that we've had with the women's program is
100%.
really cool.
Yeah, we've done a great job as a sport of integrating women for a long time now. 2004 is the first time women's wrestling was at the Olympics, and it's come a long ways in 20 years. Super happy then of how far we've come now. You're 20 years later, we've got 4 medalists. Forgot to mention Kennedy Blades was a silver at 76 kilos, and then Helen Maroulis got another medal. First, I think this was her 3rd ever Olympic medal, which I think sets a record. So she was at 57 kilos. So, and she was Olympic gold in Rio, beating an all-timer from Japan, one of our favorite countries that does a great job of wrestling. So I'm going to go through, want to go through just some, our next kind of batch of topics would just be, promotion of our golf classic, which is now over, but I want to say thanks to everyone who participated in that. Jake, I know you were a golfer, and your wife as well helped out in a variety of ways. I was not able to make it this year. I was a little bit behind the scenes, kind of helping fundraise the lead up this summer. The wife helped, and so shout out to.
Well, you can't putt. That's the problem, Jeff. You got it's like Happy Gilmore. Tap it in.
I can't do a lot of things, so I don't try anymore. So I played my
golf was fun. The thing was great. It was a golf classic that I've been to a few different times. I don't know. I've been to a lot of them from different schools, different programs. Wrestling does a good job of fundraising, and I think golfing is a fun way to get people together. And Waconia does as good a job as anybody with our. It's a lot of fun in that when you go to these things, it's a chance to cut loose, a chance to have fun. It's a chance to be a little bit silly and goofy and see a vulnerable side of it, the coaches and the parents and all these people. And whenever you go to them, there's always this element of golf, but it's a lot more than that, and you're just there to kind of have a good time. And I noticed how close everybody is at the Waconia one. A lot of them, you go and it's kind of like, oh, hey, how you doing? And you see people, but at the Waconia one, you had people out on the green. They got somebody in a headlock in there. They're not afraid to get a little bit goofy out there. So it was really fun, and everybody had a good time. And people wrote down some tremendous scores. I don't know if people golfed tremendously, but they sure recorded a lot of 2s and 3s on that scorecard, which I guess somebody's got to win. They say, oh yeah, we shot 17. Of course,
Is it similar to like,
I guess,
kind of like the election cycles? It's like, it's not who gets the most votes, it's who counts the most votes.
It's kind of like how we were saying the Russians. It's like, well, you were behind in the match, but we'll go ahead and just call a timeout after, and we'll reevaluate the score. And that guy was fleeing.
Yep.
Not always on the up, but.
Yep. I want to say thanks to all the organizers, to all our sponsors. We had just tremendous amount of sponsors. Please go to our website, waconiawrestling.com. Go to the Golf Classic tab to see all of our great sponsors. Our board of directors, chaired by Lisa Marsh, and then our treasurer, John Hemsey, were among the masterminds with our golf committee again this year. So thank you to those folks. There's lots of people I could thank, but you all know who you are. So thank you for everything. And thank you also to our golfers and those that help donate, also buy stuff through the raffle and the silent auction, all that good stuff. So another successful golf tournament gone by. Switching gears. Yeah. We want to promote our it's youth. I switched. Originally, this was the off-season series, and I'm like, no, I think it's now preseason. So
it's time. It's time.
Registration's open and then USA Wrestling also opened their portal to buy new memberships for this 2024-25 season. We were in all of the elementary schools, and we were at the middle school and high school, and also St. Joe's this last 2 days ago. It feels like forever ago, but on Wednesday, I was handing out flyers and candy and all that kind of stuff. So among the things we do promote, we want to make sure that everyone has their calendars for those that are new out there, or for those that are, of you parents that have returners. Tell your friends about our beginner wrestling clinic. It's an open house as well, kind of a family fun night as well. Monday, September 23rd, 7 to 8 p.m., Waconia High School gym. This is our youth clinic for really kind of getting the word out for kids to try wrestling. Jake, I know you're going to be among the clinicians again, of which You always do a tremendous job. So yeah, we're getting ready for that.
It's a fun event. It's cool. Yeah, I guess so. It is it's a garden, and my analogy here is for so many generations of wrestlers, what we did was we outworked everybody for 3.5 to 4 months, right? We just get in the room and we just outwork them 2 a days, outwork them, grind match. And now we're kind of like, well, let's just treat it more like maintenance. And what I'm getting at is everybody in the sport of wrestling is very aware of where they're at. If you're winning a lot, you know that. If you're losing a lot, you know that. You don't need somebody to tell you, well, we gotta win a little more. You know that you're not winning. If you win a lot, you're being told, hey, you're the best ever, and you think you win a lot. And to get kids to do it a little longer, in my opinion, is to kind of take and do the things in the front end and the back end once in a while. And then that means in the middle, maybe we don't grind as hard, especially like we used to back in the day where we were cutting crazy amounts of weight and doing dumb things. But it's like, and my reference to the garden is throughout the fall, throughout the spring, and into the summer, if you treat it like you treat a good, well-maintained garden, you get out there once a week, you pull the weeds, you pull off the bugs, you do the things you need to do to keep things maintained. Then when the winter comes, then you compete a lot. And then as you get a little more seasoned, well, now you compete a little bit in the spring or you compete a little bit in the fall, and you're trying to set up what's best for you and yours and whatever your goals are. But if people say like, well, we're still in the middle of football and we're still in the middle of baseball and we're still lacrosse thing now. Yes, again, I hate that dumb sport. Anyway, but it's like, yeah, great. Be a football player right now, but you need to dedicate 90 minutes to wrestling a week. Just 90 minutes. Yeah. That's all it is, 90 minutes. And I know that's being selfish on our part, but what we're doing is we're trying to set kids up with a base so that when they come into the room, they're able to get their hand raised more and more and more, and they're able to have a positive impact on their teammates, and they're able to be a contributor. And maybe their goal isn't to grow up to be Max McAnally, and realistically, that's not going to happen for most of us. But if we want to be the kid that helps them or rides those coattails for a few years, get some team awards, get some opportunities to do your own thing and have your own story to tell someday, you're not going to have that if you just do the 3.5 months in the winter. It doesn't matter how hard you grind then. You get in 99 matches and you can do it all day long and wake up every morning, but if you're only doing it for those 3.5 months, it's just not going to happen. And Waconia is doing a great job of kind of extending on the edges and doing it so in a friendly, welcoming way, and not saying, nope, you're not allowed to play lacrosse. Nope, you got to go for 9 weeks. You can't just go for 3, and it's like we're trying to create these on-ramps, is the word that Jeff and I keep using, on-ramps, on-ramps, on-ramps. And there's options and things outside of Waconia ourselves, but for what most of our kids are at right now, and most of the kids that we're recruiting and working with, getting involved with Waconia wrestling starts with coming to things like this, even if it is in October and you feel like, well, wrestling's not till the winter. It's like, trust me, we come in, we have fun, we go slow, we challenge the kids that need to be challenged, but for most of the kids, it's just getting comfortable and stepping them into that idea of the sport and what its struggles mean in a positive way. And I think that we got to help people see that, because a lot of places, they just look at it and they're like, no, it's not wrestling yet, we're still doing this. And it's like, yeah, great, still be a swimmer, but you should put 90 minutes into your wrestling every week.
Yeah. It's not like you gotta go cold turkey, but we're saying keep pruning the garden, right? And stay fresh. Keep staying going to a stance and motion drill in your yard or your living room or with your dog for 10-15 minutes, right? A couple times a week, right?
Sure. And where it usually starts is things like this, where we have a little bit of a preseason program and the kids get involved. Very rarely do you have like a brand new kid who puts in the extra on their own because they don't know what to do yet. But we get these kids that, okay, my kids, they had a good time. They took their lumps, and gosh darn, they should. Everybody's going to take their lumps. Everybody's going to fight mom and dad once in a while to go to practice, which kind of brings me to another point. I have a lot of parents asking, like, yeah, he's fighting me on it this year. He doesn't love to come all the time. Last year he did. I'm like, oh, really? What else does he fight you on? I'm like, well, what do you mean? Does he fight you to do your chores? Does he fight you to do your homework? Does he fight you to go to bed at night? Does he fight you for the last piece of chicken? Like, that's what kids do as they get older. They fight you on things. But the idea is we don't make it a big deal. We just say, yeah, I can see you're disappointed, but we're going to practice. And you're going to do your best. And you're going to learn to get punched in the mouth, metaphorically. And then you're going to toughen up. And one day you're going to get your hand raised. And this is all going to be worth it. Because as a club coach, a lot of people, watching or know that I coach in the city a little bit. And I'm still affiliated with Minnesota Elite a lot, that city club. I can honestly say out of about 20 kids from Waconia that have come with me personally, not even just gone there, but personally in the last few years, there has only been one or two that have come to me afterwards and said, honestly, coach, it's just not really for me. I'm like, okay, that's awesome. And it's not like people don't go off and do other clubs and other things, and they should. There's a ton of great things. No nonsense down the street. The Thorn camps are good camps. There's a lot of good stuff. But the idea that they come and they're like, oh, I'm just too burned out. No, you know who gets burned out? People that don't do anything for 9 months, and then they come in and then they just bust gangbusters for 3 months. They get done and they're like, yeah, that was ridiculous. We're not doing that again. It's like, well, yeah, you did it wrong. You can do it longer and do it better. It's kind of like going for a run. If you're going to go for a mile and you're like me, you're not trying to cover that distance in 5 minutes. You're going to try to set your pace a little more reasonable, and then you'll get there when you get there. You don't try to just do it all in 3.5 months. And so I've been most impressed with Jeff, you, and so many of the people here in Waconia's ability to kind of take this idea of, let's just, like you said, maintain the garden. And we'll do a little bit in this time. We'll do a little bit in this time. We'll create some on-ramps. We'll create some opportunities. We'll create some on-ramps. The girls program last winter is an on-ramp. The freestyle program we're doing here in Waconia is an on-ramp. Me being available and Jake Sotzer in No Nonsense being great is an on-ramp. The fall wrestling thing we just promoted is an on-ramp. It's like there's all these on-ramps to get kids to do the sport for a little bit more, for a little bit longer, in the right way, with the right coach and the right people. And it just creates this momentum of, okay, now we have kids who are wrestlers. They have 3, 4, 5, 6 other interests. That's awesome. They should. But as we want to get to the place where we give those kids the opportunities, they have to be wrestlers at a young age. They can be wrestlers who play football, play lacrosse, go to church every week, and hunt and fish. They can be kids that do that, but they got to be wrestlers. And the only way to do that is to start to kind of get those ends, those fringe months of April, May, a little bit of wrestling. September, October, a little bit of wrestling. And then someday they wake up and they're like your kid and they want to do it 364 days a year. Maybe they'll take one day off, till 4 o'clock. And
when wisdom teeth extraction
requires
him to take a week off. Correct.
My teeth are,
well, I'll give some personal testimonies to what you're saying, Jake, because the old model used to be folk style season, start, stop, do a camp in the summer for a few days, and then come back again in October, November, start over again. That model's been kind of thrown out the window now, with, like you had said, especially during COVID, this model was proven to be, the new model is to prune the garden, to stay current as much as you can, right? And everybody needs a break here and there. Great. But the more, just like a runner, I love that analogy too, is I have been a runner for a long time, and you're better off in that maintenance mode it's easier to do that than cold turkey. And then you start a whole new training cycle again. And so, but also just having that identity of a wrestler in other sports is such a differentiator, right? It's so cool to see. We've seen that with our kids that go do baseball, that do lacrosse, that do football. I've heard stories of our football tackle, 5th, 6th grade tackle football teams. Certain coaches just picking all wrestlers and tending to have quite a bit of success. But I'll just say too, for parents out there that maybe you're starting to have those conversations about this year, whether let's say you're a returning wrestler, nudging your kid to do this sport, just like, hey, get it. Maybe if you don't want to do a ton of okay, let's just practice. Let's go back to just doing practice. This is a great sport for you.
And I think we've kind of lost that, Jeff.
Yeah. I'll use the example. Our youngest son.
I'm kind of losing you here. I don't know if my internet's going wonky or not.
Okay. You still here?
Do I got you still?
Yep, I can hear you. I can hear you. Can you hear me still?
Is that my connection or your connection here buffering? Hmm.
We'll keep you on here.
That's not good.
Are you still there?
Yes. Oh,
You want to like exit out and then start again? Okay, we may have lost Jake, but hopefully we can get him back. But I'll just continue with kind of our thought process here and give you a little bit of a testimonial in that our I've got two sons in the program. Our oldest son is trying to get Jake back.
okay. Hey, I'm back.
Yeah, now you're back. Got it. I was just gonna.
So we say, I'm eating up all the internet. Like the hot water
Yeah.
back in the house in the 80s.
So Jake, I
So
was just
I want
gonna.
to jump right
Oh,
in
go ahead.
where you were saying. I think as a culture, and this isn't like the whole like kids today don't want to work or okay, that's not me. I'm not saying that. But what I am saying as a culture, as a group of people, and from old to young, we've lost the ability to look at something and say it's hard. I don't want to do it, but I'm going to do it anyways. And as parents, we've lost the ability to kind of tell that to kids. It's like, no, I know you don't want to do it, and I know it's tough. But listen, I'm not going to make you cut weight. I'm not going to make you wrestle competition. Those are actually usually what kids want to do once once they get rolling. Like, I want to go to the team thing. I want to go with the, but we say like, look, it's only 90 minutes. You're going to go there. You're going to be tough because what I'm trying to teach my stepkids and what my family taught me is tough isn't having this macho like, whoa, and I can beat you. It's I'm better than I got this big truck
Yeah.
or like I don't. It doesn't. None of this stuff makes us tough when we think about the idea of muscles and like bravado. What tough is that there's a challenging thing and you do it even though you don't want to do it. And one of my greatest examples of somebody being tough was my mom, who never played an organized sport in her whole entire life. She couldn't throw a baseball 5 yards. She still can't even understand a wrestling match. She went to hundreds of them. She doesn't understand competing, but she was tough. She woke up every morning after being a single mom and working all night, maybe an hour of sleep because she worked nights, and would drive my dumb butt all over the state to go to these little wrestling tournaments, sit in the car, wait for him to sleep in the car while I would run in and do my weigh-ins by myself, and then come in and sit mat side in a sport where she didn't know anybody, know anything, and just sit there and watch me. And you as we know, the wrestling tournament can drag on for God knows how many hours before you actually get mat side, and it's loud and there's people screaming and the concessions are a, a joke and the bathroom smell and there's all these miserable parts of it. But she would go through it and she would say, "Well, I know it's good for you." And it was kind of this thing where she just never once ever looked at me and said, "Well, fine, we won't go then," looking for a way out of it. She just every morning would get up, and it's like we've lost that as a culture. And people say like, "Well, my kid doesn't want to wrestle anymore," and I kind of say like, "Yeah, I get it." And some days when I was a kid, I didn't want to do it either. It's not about wanting to. It's about that's who we are. That's what we do. You're going to get
Yeah.
up and you're going to do it. Now we're not going to push you hard. We're not going to scold you for losing. We're not going to scoff at you because you're not the best in the room or you didn't win the thing. We're just going to pat you on the butt and say, "All right, bud, let's go. Pick your head up. So what? Wasn't the best time in the world, but you got tougher. You got a little bit better at something that wasn't easy to get better at. But you
Right.
get through those times because one day they wake up and it's always worth it. I don't know how many thousands of practices at the end of it where I've raised the kid's hand as a joke and done this little example, and the kid didn't smile. Just the act of, if you stand in the mirror tonight, if there's anybody still listening after our technical glitches, go into your bathroom mirror, take one of your arms, and violently, like the referees always do dramatically, raise your arm up in the air and do this. Like you're going to laugh at yourself. Like you're going to smile. There's this something inherently in our DNA about the idea that makes whatever the heck I went through worth it. So
Yep.
if you're one of those parents who are like, yeah, my kid did it for a couple of years, but now he doesn't want to. I'm not telling you to sign him up and say, come up, you're going. You say, hey, bud, look, we're going to keep giving it a shot. And I'm going to be there to support you. I'm going to understand if you don't always have the best time. But we're going to go there for 90 minutes. You're going to listen to coach. You're going to play the dodgeball. You're going to have fun. Neil's going to make you laugh because Neil's hilarious. But he might yell at you too once or twice. And you might have a kid hit you in the nose and it might sting a little bit. But one of these days, you're going to understand that going through this struggle makes you a different person. It's different. And it doesn't matter if your struggle only lasts from 7th grade through eating, or if you start when you're young and you win world medals like Mackinac. It's like the struggle is what makes us different people. So that's kind of my wrestling pitch for people that are like, yeah, no, it's great. And we got one kid that does it and the other one doesn't anymore. And I'm not telling everybody that you have to tell your kid, nope, tough, we're doing it.
I totally agree.
I'm just saying the idea that we always enjoy every sport and it's the best thing ever, it's a fallacy. It doesn't work. It just, you raise kids who think that, well, that's not fun. I don't want to do that. And I don't necessarily think that, that's always the right way to go.
Totally agree.
So that's my rant.
While we were trying to get you back, I was going to fill the time with just talking about my family and just my two boys. Older boy, Carter, has loved wrestling for a long time, and he's become self-motivated from a young age. And, that's been his journey. Will, loving the sport came along with what similar to what you're talking about, a little bit of a struggle in terms of just being comfortable, being uncomfortable. Right. And, for a perfectionist navigating the sport. And so we knew that as parents that this sport, and there are other sports that like soccer that came a lot more naturally to him, but we kept him in the sport because maybe if soccer became his lifelong sport that he was going to commit himself to, wrestling was really going to help him with that, become more physical, more mentally strong, ability to navigate anxiety, adversity, etc. And one of the best parenting decisions my wife and I have continued to this day is keeping him in wrestling. And it's really just helped him to become a more mature person, a person with understanding. Failure is not a definition of who he is. It's just something that happens that then what are you going to do about it? Right. Things happen. Yeah. What can I learn from it? How can I move forward? And that's been so cool.
Monster too.
And coincidentally, he is finding that joy especially these last 2 years, 2-3 years. And so, we were ready to commit 100% to soccer, but he ended up, if that's what he wanted to do at some point, but he's kind of going the other way. And I think he's going to continue to play soccer, but I think his identity now is a wrestler. And that's so cool for him to see, not just we love wrestling, but just the insides of what's going on, the leatheriness of his character, to be able to absorb things that when things don't go their way, things are going to happen in life that aren't the greatest, that are, devastating, tragic. This sport is unlike anything else I've seen to help our kids become humans that can navigate those situations. And that's, we do sport to help teach lessons. There's no greater lesson than that, in my humble opinion. And my stump speech.
Yeah, so I think that's great, and it's really awesome the way you guys did that. I see a lot of kids, they get to those ages and they're like, yeah, I'm not, and they kind of haw and hum and hum. And I'm not saying everybody's going to do it all the way through, but what I am saying is if we can get to those moments and kind of say, I hear you, bud, and I support what you're saying.
Yep.
I think I'm being played on like on the Grammys. Like they play the music and they want to get you to shut up and they play you off the stage. Or the Oscars or whatever it is.
No,
but anyway, yeah, sticking it out. Lean on your support network if that's the battle you and your little ones are in. Listen. I'm not saying just walk it out and sign them up. No, listen. Sit down and listen. Say, what is it? What's the struggle? How can we help? What can we, and then talk to your coaches, talk to your other wrestling support network people. Get them around other kids. It's about the community. There's a lot of things. I mean, we can go on and on for days. I can see that you got to wrap things up. I do say you got to come back. We got to talk about the trickle down. Remember Gould. We're going to talk about Gould and the trickle down of how the Olympics will affect Waconia youth someday.
We will do a rain check. Part two. Yep. Yeah, I think you so much.
The junior varsity internet connection here at my house. we don't have the high speed gamer internet. Like
we must have lots of gaming going on or something, but no worries. Jake, it's always a pleasure to have you with us, and we will have you more. Making a commitment to do that. We got still, 2.5 more months till the start of the regular season for folk style season. We're year round now, but folk style season's the next one ahead, and it's going to be a fun year ahead for both high school program and the youth club programs. So appreciate everyone tuning in again.